Welcome to Speaking Cinema, Serious Movie Jibber Jabber, a movie podcast, coming to you live from the haunted chambers of a spooky old house in the hills of Hollywood, California. Actually, it's just an apartment in Hollywood, and the shaking walls are caused by low-flying airplanes, helicopters, the AC blasting, and my shitty neighbors.
And the occasional 2.0 earthquake.
Also, some plumbing issues.
I sleep through a lot of those earthquakes.
Well, fuck them. Hear us Jibber Jabber through your local gypsy medium or witch cauldron, or if you prefer, Stitcher, SoundCloud, iTunes. Follow us on Twitter, Facebook, at Speaking Cinema. Also on the Instagrams, Speaking Cinema.
We're everywhere.
We're everywhere. Except for LinkedIn. No LinkedIn. Not yet. Gotta build to that.
We're not hiring interns just yet.
Yeah, we need an intern for that. I'm your host, a specter only known as El Jibber Jabber. With me today is Baron Von Scary, aka Kevin.
Hello.
On this edition of our month-long Speaking Cinema Spooky Jibber Jabber Halloween Appreciation Month, beware of 2015's Crimson Peak. Starring Charlie Hunnam, Mia Wasikowska, Jessica Chastain, and Tom Hiddleston. Directed by Guillermo del Toro. Written by Guillermo del Toro and Matthew Robbins. Produced by Legendary Pictures. Distribution handled by Universal. I almost said our friends at Universal, but we're only casual acquaintances.
I've had a drink with Universal once.
Once. The spooky rundown, if you're not familiar, in the aftermath of a family tragedy, an aspiring author is torn between the love for her childhood friend and the temptation of a mysterious outsider. Trying to escape the ghosts of the past, she is swept away to a house that breathes, bleeds, and remembers.
Oh boy.
Crimson Peak. Del Toro had the spec script for this written after the release of Pan's Labyrinth in 2006. He sold the script to Universal with the intention of making it his next directorial effort, but it was delayed when he made Hellboy 2 and worked with Peter Jackson on the Hobbit movies. Got the real bad end of those Hobbit movies. He moved to New Zealand, wrote and produced them.
I have a feeling those checks cleared, and I think he's okay.
He's okay, but, as an audience member,
yeah.
It's like, hey, man, I want some Guillermo del Toro shit, and it's like, nope.
Listen, that was more due to the MGM getting passed around the table, because they own the rights to The Hobbit, they were bankrupt, and them getting kind of passed around to each studio delayed that to the point where Guillermo couldn't do it anymore.
Wasn't there also a issue with the Tolkien estate being dissatisfied with the Lord of the Rings movies?
Yeah, I mean, the Tolkien estate, they're notoriously stodgy, so they didn't...
The British being stodgy? Surely you jest.
Yeah, they didn't make life easy for them either, so...
Well, speaking of making life easier, Del Toro then developed a good relationship with Legendary Pictures while making Pacific Rim, and Universal allowed him to produce the movie Crimson Peak with Legendary.
Legendary doing interesting stuff lately.
Interesting stuff, still some garbage, still some kind of half-baked
a young
ideas.
studio, but
they're young. They're young go-getters.
They are.
So I mean, they did Batman Begins, Superman Returns, Lady in the Water, The Ant Bully, Beer Fest, We Are Marshall, 300, 10,000 Years BC, Dark Knight, Watchmen, Observer and Report, Trick or Treat, Hangover, Where the Wild Things Are, Ninja Assassin, Clash of the Titans, Jonah Hex, Inception, The Town, Due Date, Sucker Punch, The Hangover 2, Wrath of the Titans, Dark Knight Rises, Jack and the Giant Slayer, 42, The Hangover Part 3, Man of Steel, Pacific Rim, 300, Rise of an Empire, Godzilla, As Above, So Below, Dracula Untold, Interstellar, Seventh Son, Unbroken, Black Hat, Dead Rising, Watchtower, Jurassic World, and Straight Outta Compton, with the upcoming Steve Jobs, Crimson Peak, Krampus, Warcraft, Spectral, and The Great Wall. So
just a couple of movies.
Some good things in there, some bad things in there, but overall doing some interesting stuff. They also, I think, have just lost. No, they're doing the King Kong movie too.
Yep, which means could get that King Kong Godzilla movie. Have them duke it out.
I need a good Godzilla movie. I need a better Godzilla movie because the other one was okay.
I like the Gareth Edwards Godzilla.
I liked it, but it wasn't everything that I wanted it to be. You know what I mean? It was a lot that, listen, I wanted gigantic monsters fighting. I got that. But I also wanted more than one character in that movie, and I didn't get that.
All right.
It's like everything happens to this one guy. I've talked about this before. Moving on. So Godzilla. Del Toro calls this movie a gothic romance and wanted to make a throwback to the large-scale horror movies of his youth, like The Shining and The Exorcist. Guillermo del Toro said that audiences are getting used to horror just being found footage or B-movie type horror movies, and he wanted to make Crimson Peak a grander horror film, which I really like this sentiment because I think horror can live in that low budget, lo-fi kind of machination. One of our very first episode was Starry Eyes, and I think that's kind of, it's not a B movie, but it's a low budget affair, and that's totally fine. But it doesn't have to just be that. It could be something big and grand, and I like that idea.
Yeah, and I think the studios are getting a little more weary of it. It's nice somebody's throwing some money at this and really making this big vision of a horror movie.
Mm-hmm.
I like that.
I like that as well. Benedict Cumberbatch and Emma Stone were originally cast as the leads of this film. Both dropped out for various reasons. Sorry to all you Cumberbitches out there. I'm a Stonehead myself, so I'm very sad.
Yep.
Love that Emma Stone. Love that smoky voice. Love that fucking blonde red hair. Love that face of hers. Love it all.
We don't get to see what Guillermo del Toro is going to do with that.
Maybe we can save her for the Mountains of Madness. Get into that in a minute. The Crimson Peak house set was built at Pinewood Studios in Toronto, and everything was built specifically for this movie. No repurposed props or parts were used. The set was repeatedly huge and fully functional, and Del Toro called it the best set he's ever worked on. Naturally, he would, but the rumor is that, yeah, it was like they just built a mansion.
It looks incredible in the trailer.
It does.
Can't wait.
This film was actually completed and in the can as of 2014, but the release was held off for the 2015 Halloween season for obvious reasons. Stephen King has seen the film already, and he says it's gorgeous and fucking terrifying. The trailer even touts it as a masterpiece. Big words to live up to. Gothic horror, kind of a weird genre in this day and age. A good roll of the dice on this movie, I think, in terms of taking some risks, not taking some risks. It's some interesting balance. The cast of this movie is phenomenal. The director's phenomenal. The concept is a little bit of a throwback. Interesting stuff. Kev, you heard about this movie? Kev, you wrote this thing? Kev, what do you think about this?
Looking forward to it ever since I heard about it. It's as soon as the first thing they ever showed was the crest of Crimson Peak.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, that's pure Guillermo del Toro. Like, the fact that he has enough of a style where you can look at one prop and know it's from one of his movies is really cool.
Right.
Very impressive. And yeah, the story the whole time was like, yeah, it's big throwback, old school haunted house movie. Doug Jones is back in it, playing some ghosts, so I'm always down for that. He played Abe Sapien and the Pan, the Fawn in Pan's Labyrinth.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't be more excited for this movie.
Yeah, at first I was kind of bummed out that the Mountains of Madness was canceled.
It's still, it's one of those projects that kind of keeps coming back.
Well, I listened to it.
It's like Chinese democracy.
The Chinese democracy of films. I was listening to a podcast that he was on The Business, the KCRW podcast about the film and TV business, and he's saying, he's like, I'm in the show part of the show business. The business part, that's not where I excel. And he's like, listen, when the project gets rejected to a certain point, then I have to just move on, and the host was kind of like, you never see yourself coming back to it. And he's like, I can't think about that right now because I got to think about other things. Mm-hmm. So I hope that's not true. But that's the last thing that I heard about it. Maybe that was a couple of years ago. So is there something that's happened?
It's hard to say. I thought I heard somebody was looking at the script.
Well, and this is when Legendary was with Warner Brothers and not with Universal.
Universal flush with cash these days,
right?
Because they have all the big releases this year.
And it's also, it's an interesting turnaround for Universal. They have Donna Langley at the helm. She's a British woman and that's very rare that Hollywood has a British leadership. So that not only is that interesting, but she has apparently kind of turned the studio around. I mean, they had been bought by, they were up with that whole NBC Comcast, in that whole weird debacle, and the leadership was was in peril a couple of years ago. They were making kind of shitty movies. Now, with her leadership, they did the 50 Shades of Grey movie. They did Straight Outta Compton, which had been floating around Hollywood from different studios. She's really doubled down the Fast and the Furious franchise. They acquired a first look distribution deal with Blumhouse. So it's like, listen, every movie we release with them, we almost can't lose any money. You put out a $3 million movie, just people not being able to buy tickets to other movies on opening weekend will go to see that movie enough for that to make money. And then they got Legendary away from Warner Brothers. So it's like they've kind of acquired a lot of components to make an interesting studio.
And then never mind that Jurassic World is now the third highest grossing movie of all time.
Yeah, indeed. You know what I mean?
They are I read somewhere they've made more money than any studio ever has in history, and it's only September.
That's interesting. You know,
And they still have other stuff coming out.
It kind of takes us to a point of like, you know, everyone's talking about how the movie industry is in trouble and everything is dying, and in some ways there's probably metrics that support that, but like Fox had the best year of their whole studio 2 years ago, which was the best of everyone. They had a bunch. That was the year they did Fault in Our Stars and had a bunch of relatively small small movies that did really big numbers. And then they're, you know, like X-Men and stuff. And then, so it's like, it's interesting that the sky is always falling in Hollywood, right? We could have the biggest year ever, but hey, that means that next year, I mean, do we put too many of these movies out this year? We don't have enough for next. You know what I mean? There's always that negativity that I feel like that's a tired story. You know what I mean?
And it kind of permeates throughout a lot of industries in the modern world, where it's always like, yeah, you're always just worried about something. People are so worried these days.
Right. People, you know, that we need steel today, but will people need steel tomorrow? I don't know. Get out of steel.
Yeah,
put your money into gold.
If the sky's not falling, then there's no story, basically,
right.
And that's everybody's just trying to stay in the media.
Which is why we try to focus on just, you know, watching movies and fucking talking shit about
That's
them.
what we do.
Why not? Fan of Guillermo del Toro? Yes or no?
Oh yeah, big time.
I am also a fan of Guillermo del Toro, not only as a filmmaker, but I like the idea of Guillermo del Toro. To clarify, you know, he's like this weird dude.
So he is a human being.
He's a human being. You know, but admittedly, he's kind of a weird dude, and he kind of, you know, like the story we get from him is that he has 2 houses on his property. There's his house he lives in with his daughters and his wife, and then there's like his bleak house, which is like a house that's full of oddities.
So stacked with toys.
Yeah, stacked with toys and oddities, and it's where he imagines things, and he has a window that simulates rain, and he turns it on, and he's like, I just look at the window and think. And you know, he curses a lot, and he's just like he's a fan of things. He feels like if your friend became a movie director, what would happen, right? Where he's like,
Yep.
Now I can buy all of the toys. Now I can have a separate house, so my wife is not bugged by all my stupid shit. You know what I mean? Like, I really like that. You know what I mean?
He looks like every neckbeard at Comic-Con. You know, he's a big dude. He's got a beard. He's got glasses, but he's a really nice guy. He's really intelligent, and he knows movies, monsters. He cares about the things that he likes in a non-superficial way.
Right.
Like, he understands why monster movies work. He doesn't just make a monster movie.
Right, and he's highly quotable too. Like
Very quotable.
The Showtime show Masters of Horror came from Guillermo del Toro. They're all eating dinner, I think, at the Apple Pan in Sherman Oaks, and he wished the table next to them having a happy birthday, and he's like, "Is it your birthday? Happy birthday from the Masters of Horror!" Because him, John Carpenter, Mick Garris, and all these Wes Craven, all these dudes. And so it's like he's highly quotable. And then the thing where I'm like, I have to be on this guy's side till the day I die. Was he was doing a signing at Amoeba for Scott Pilgrim vs. the World. Now, to clarify, he had nothing to do with that movie, but he liked it so much he's like, "Can I come to this too?" They're like, "Yeah, sure."
And that's another thing I like is he's so well versed in other people's work.
He's a fan.
Yeah, he really cares out and he champions other people's work.
And so he wrote on someone's Blu-ray, "If anyone doesn't like this movie, they're all caps motherfucker underlined fucker." And I'm like, this guy gets it. He gets us. You know what I mean? He gets like just being a fan of movies and just like having fun with it. You know what I mean?
You know, he talks about when they made Pacific Rim. He's like, he's like, this is a movie for people, made by people who like big robots and big monsters, for people that like big robots and big monsters.
Mm-hmm.
You know, but that movie still works, just not in a complete stupid fanboy way. Like,
Right.
It's an actual movie. Like,
Right.
he has actual chops and can do it.
Mm-hmm.
But then he can also make something like Pan's Labyrinth, which is in Spanish, you know, very artistic, not really a horror movie, much more of a fantasy story with some horror elements in it. But the way he uses color and camera movement, it's very old school filmmaking of like, of almost like from the 70s, where you're telling the story very visually.
Right.
And, you know, he has colors towards the end of the movie, he has colors from the demon world coming into the real world and showing that like they're mixing. He can make these very heady, very complicated, very personal films, and then make Hellboy next year.
It's interesting you bring this up, this distinction in his filmography. Do you prefer his more straightforward action horror movies like Hellboy, Pacific Rim, Blade 2? Or do you like the more artistic, personal Spanish language ones, Devil's Backbone, Pan's Labyrinth, etc., etc.
I think
Kronos.
Yeah, Kronos, his debut. I think he really pulls out all the stops when he does his personal movies. I love Hellboy. Love Pacific Rim. I like Blade 2. But I always feel like he kind of reins it in a little bit for those when he's got a bigger budget and he has kind of a little more tied to a studio. But when he does the little ones, and I wouldn't say Pan's Labyrinth is a small movie, but
it's a personal movie.
It's much more personal. He really lets himself shine in those,
right.
So I think I prefer those.
See, I think I don't have a preference because looking at this list, like, I think The Devil's Backbone is probably one of the greatest ghost movies just ever, right? It's just absolutely fantastic. It's one of those rare movies where if you love that genre of horror or ghost movies or whatever, it's for you. And if you hate that genre, this is the exception to the rule, right?
With a great setting of an orphanage with a bomb in the middle of
right.
it.
Right. In a post-World War I or II.
I think it's the Spanish Civil War.
Spanish Civil War.
It's a subject very personal to him, too, and he makes a lot of movies that revolve around Franco and the Spanish Civil War.
Mm-hmm. And then with Hellboy and Pacific Rim and Blade, it's kind of like he's I think it's too soon to call him, like, to say that he's on this level or this level, right? But, like, those are, for popcorn movies, those are really good. You know what I mean? And there's an intelligence there. I think there's a little bit of Pacific Rim that got in its own way where they had to explain too much because too much of the audience is not familiar with the concept of gigantic robots. To you and me, who grew up on Robotech, who grew up on Power Rangers, who grew up on Metal Gear, right? It's like, yeah, it's a big fucking robot, obviously. If we could make big robots, we would. We just don't know how to do it yet.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
And we make them look cool.
Right. And we make them look fucking, super cool. And there's too much of the audience who I think is just like, well, why would you build a robot that big? And it's just like, bro, if you have to ask, you know what I mean? So so I don't know. I don't think I have a preference. I think I just like him as a director. You know what I mean? I think I want him to do both.
I completely agree.
Right.
And yeah, I hope he keeps doing both because he's good at both.
That would be the crime, right? Is if he stopped doing one to do the other. Mm-hmm. I don't want to see him not do popcorn movies. I don't want to see him not do art movies. Speaking of mixing those two together, though, do we think that The Mountain of Madness will ever get made?
I think it will someday. Apparently, for our viewers who are not familiar, it's based on an H.P. Lovecraft story. It's an epic, like, supernatural, kind of horror, kind of philosophical story, and apparently it's going to cost like $250 million if he makes it the way he wants to make it. It's going to be this gargantuan, huge movie. I mean, I believe it deals with Cthulhu.
Yes.
Which, Cthulhu is like bigger than the sun, so Cthulhu's massive. And yeah, a studio's not going to do that because that's a lot of money to throw at something that's really strange.
And it's an R-rated $200 million.
Yeah, R-rated, very nihilistic H.P. Lovecraft story. That's not an easy sell.
Right. And a minute ago, I was like, oh, that movie's not going to be made. But thinking about it now, I mean, he was making that movie at Universal. They have the rights to it. They were like, we don't want to do this. But now that Legendary's with him and with Universal, kind of connects the dots again, right? They can put up some of the money. They can handle some of the resources. They can invigorate that project. You know what I mean? So... And they're into making these big movies, that are a little bit obscure, a little bit weird, a little bit out there. But, I think if their next couple movies are hits, if that Warcraft movie lands, I feel like we could do this. You know what I mean?
I think so, yeah. If the general audience buys into a high fantasy story, they'll take an H.P. Lovecraft story.
Right. Throw Tom Cruise in there.
A big one.
Throw Tom Cruise in there. Throw Simon Pegg in there. Let's just do it.
Do it.
Simon Pegg, get in that movie. 2010 horror trends tend to be quick and dirty studio jobs or fiercely independent productions, which have one thing in common: cheapness. Do you think that this will spur a return to big budget horror movies, or do you think audiences are interested in that? What do you think, Kev?
I think audiences don't really... They haven't seen a big budget horror movie in a long time. I think they've forgotten what it looks like. I think if this one really is great, then we could get back to doing some of that.
And I think that the audience doesn't necessarily care about budget. They care about how it looks. Like, they don't want it to look low budget, obviously. They don't want it to look bobo. But I think, if the trailer grabs you, the trailer grabs you. I don't think, there's an idea in Hollywood, and statistically it's true, right? Where if the higher the budget, the higher the return. But I think I think the audience sees a perception of scale and then likes it, right? You see the Avengers and you know this is going to be a big scale movie. If you were able to make a big scale movie with not as much money, the audience I don't think would care as long as it felt right, you know. So it's all about. I think it's truly about feeling as opposed to like.
That's what Danny Boyle talks a lot about. The British director did Slumdog Millionaire. 28 Days Later, he says the real trick is make $30 million look like $100 million.
Yeah, why not?
It's not as hard as people think it is, but I think he's just a really smart filmmaker, so knows how to do it.
Is Crimson Peak rated R or is it rated PG?
It is rated R.
Oh, interesting. Yeah. And I also think that we're back to a time where you don't need to do a PG-13 horror movie anymore. Yep. You know, in the late 90s, early 2000s, we had a lot of Final Destinations and My Soul to Take and the one with the Drag Me to Hells, you know what I mean? They're trying to chase this PG-13 audience, and I think it'll always be there. And I think you have to make a movie for that. You can't just take an R-rated movie and scale it back. So I think if the strength of vision comes across in this movie in terms of review and buzz, I think that helps it. You know what I mean? And that helps people have faith that we can put some money into this and make, you know, a movie. It's also strange because Hollywood doesn't really make mid-budget movies anymore, right? Everything is either low budget or high budget. So it makes it tough to make a moderately budget horror movie when they don't even make moderately budget dramas.
Exactly, which they certainly can, but I think there's a lot of mismanagement of the money, and it's this idea that if you spend more money, then it must yield more. And it's like, you can spend a very modest budget on a small drama and
get a modest
and you'll
return.
get a modest return. You know, and then you line your coffers with that, and then you put it towards the big stuff.
Right. And it's also interesting right now is that ghosts are really popular, right? You got The Conjuring, you got Unfriended, you got The Gallows. You know, we're kind of feeling this ghost vibe again. You know what I mean? That was, again, back to the early 2000s. You know, that was like The Ring and all these other kind of weird ghosty, The Grudge, and all these weird ghosty stories. Now we're back to ghost stories again. So I think it's going to come out at a good time in terms of relevance, right? You know, World War Z came out and zombie movies everything is very popular. So it's in the cultural normality. Dracula Untold came out. You know, we like vampires. We're a little bit past that culturally, but you know, it's still relevant. You know what I mean? If you made a big budget Invisible Man movie, I'd be like, whoa, what are you doing? You know what I mean? Like, we're not really. That's a hard sell. You know what I mean? So I think this is an easier sell being a ghost movie. We're feeling ghosts right now.
Yep.
Paranormal Activity 1 through 7. 5? 1 through 5?
I was just gonna say, are there 7 of those movies?
Maybe there's 5.
I believe it.
I can't remember. Do you believe in ghosts, Kev? No. Do you believe in ghosts?
Part of me really wants to, but then there's all those ghost hunter shows, and they're all so stupid. Yes. All those people are dumb. Part of me really likes the idea of there is that afterlife of, but we're in limbo and we're still in the real world, but just nobody can see us.
Right.
You know?
I think we're both in the Rob Zombie category where we don't believe in anything, but for some reason we like all this satanic shit.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I like the idea of a ghost. I think that's really cool. I don't believe in ghosts.
Yeah, I don't.
But then how do you explain? It's a cool idea. It's fraught with inconsistencies, and it speaks to an emotional logic that doesn't make sense literally. Like, why do ghosts have clothes? Are their clothes haunted? Can clothes be haunted?
Socks.
Yeah, I'm wearing boots. Are my boots? You know what I mean? Like, shouldn't ghosts be naked? Which, by the way, would be way scarier. You know what I mean? Why are ghosts always from like the Victorian times? You know what I mean? We've never seen a Native American ghost. I mean, there's a genocide. Not to get political here, but we purpose it. You know, the America genocide of an entire indigenous population, wiped them all out. None of them came back as ghosts. Why is it always like Victorian ladies and dudes?
Yep.
You know what I mean?
Exactly.
There's a level of like looking back to a time we think of as civilized but lawless in a certain way because of the lack of forensic whatever, and those are always ghosts. There's no woolly mammoth ghosts. There's no animal ghosts. There's no ghosts from, like a certain, the Renaissance or anything like way deep down. You know what I mean? No, there's no ghosts from 1200. There's no ghosts from the year 0. There's only ghosts from like 1850 to like 1875. You know what I mean? It's only Civil War ghosts.
All inspired by the Haunted Mansion. So there you go.
Indeed. So I think I love the idea. You know what I mean? But
It'd be cool if ghosts were around.
It'd be cool if ghosts were around. But it's also like, people look at, I think, like, old things as inert, and they're not. It's like, a building is made of all kinds of different materials, right? Wood, metal, whatever plaster is, carpet, etc., etc. And different kinds of woods, different kinds of metals. And over time, those things get creepy, creaky. Like, wood is not an inert thing. It swells in heat, it contracts in coldness, same with metal. All of these things are moving at different times. It creates a sense of, like, noise, movement, etc. So I think that, like, I don't know, it just doesn't make any sense.
Ghosts can be cool, but don't be scared of anything. Don't ruin so many people just, like, ruin their life because they're scared of ghosts.
Right. Also, if you have a good ghost story and you are a rational person and you want to tell us about it, feel free to contact us through any of these social media things out there. If you are a nut, please
Yep.
Don't want to hear it. Don't want to hear it.
Just keep chasing the mice in your head.
It also sucks because I feel like when you say something like "there's nothing as ghosts," you insult people who perhaps have lost a loved one or missed their dog or can't explain something in their house. And it's like, I'm not calling you crazy. I'm just saying to me, I've never seen a ghost. I've never seen anything like a ghost. I've never seen anything supernatural of any kind. So I just can't say, well, I trust you, because why would I trust you? I've never seen it. You know what I mean?
And anybody who shows proof of, like, oh, we got a ghost on video, it's always nothing.
And that's the biggest
Always
damnation
nothing.
of all time. Is like, now, literally everyone, or mostly everyone, has a HD video camera in their pocket, and we still haven't got a ghost on. It doesn't make any sense.
No Bigfoot either. But I like to believe Bigfoot's out there. Come on, Bigfoot.
This game is called Rapid Fire Haunted House and Gothic Jibber Jabber Edition.
All right.
Here we go. Rattling chains or ghostly moans?
I like the chains. Chains are cool.
I don't see why these things are mutually exclusive. Chains,
You like a
moans,
little bit of both?
Yeah, why not? Although I don't know why my naked ghost would have chains on. So,
Dude, it's a chain dude, I guess.
blood coming out of the walls or out of the bathtub?
I think out of the bathtub.
Follow up question: am I in the bathtub?
Yeah, you're in the bathtub.
Okay.
Come on. Yeah, it's in the bathtub. It's like that's like a place you get clean, but
Right.
then blood comes out of it. Scary.
It's also fucked up because if anything ever scary is happening in the bathtub, trying to get out of the bathtub quickly is,
No one has ever gotten out of a bathtub in less than 5 seconds.
right. You're trying to get out. There's blood coming in. Maybe there's a ghost over there. You're reaching for a towel because you don't want to slip. You know what I mean? In terms of like modesty, that's out the door, right? You're just like, I'm trying to towel off so that when I run away from here, I don't just slip and hit my head on in the hallway. Fucked up. Worst thing to be creaky: floorboards or doors?
I think floorboards. When you're walking, trying to get
Creak.
away from something, it starts creaking, or if you're sneaking around, it starts creaking. Scary.
Yeah, probably floorboards. Overlook Hotel or the House on Haunted Hill?
I like the Overlook. A lot of different rooms. I like that rustic design of the Overlook Hotel.
Yeah, I think it's the Overlook. Yeah,
Just don't go crazy in there.
and don't go to the House of Wax.
Yeah, no, fuck.
Boring.
Fuck the House of Wax with Vincent Price.
Vincent Price. Speaking of, or Elvira.
We'll go with Elvira.
I love me some Vincent Price. I think he's a great guy, but I gotta go with Elvira.
You know what I love? Titties. And Elvira's got some. She's on the cover of Tom Waits' second album.
Oh, really?
Closing Time.
As not Elvira, as whatever her real name
just
is.
whatever person. But there's a girl in the background who's topless, and it's her. So
We'll table this Google search until afterward. Best nickname for the devil: Satan, Beelzebub, Lucifer, or Big Daddy Hades?
I like Satan. Satan's just such a good name, Satan.
I think is Beelzebub that's not necessarily Satan, is it?
I think that's a general term for a devil or like the leader of the devils.
I'm going with Satan too.
Yeah, Satan.
Speaking of Satan, Marilyn Manson or King Diamond?
King Diamond.
I think I'm gonna go with Marilyn Manson.
That's King Diamond.
Manson's early shit was pretty spooky.
Except I saw Marilyn Manson live, and that show was terrible.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
What? When? Recently?
This was 2009.
Oh, that's pretty recently.
Eat Me, Drink Me had just came out. The show, ticket was like $70. He played for an hour and 20 minutes, and it was mostly this new album shit that really sucked.
He didn't do the thing where he gets on the podium and rips pages out of the Bible.
Nope, this is a very low budget production.
Interesting. I think he's back to playing everything now.
I think so. He's getting better. Also, it was really funny. They put the curtain in front of the stage while they're setting up, keep it mysterious. And then the show starts, lights go off, people are cheering, the curtain drops, and they had so much smoke on the stage that you still couldn't see anybody. So it was kind of funny of like, the big reveal is supposed to be the big reveal, but then, yeah, the curtain dropped.
And they didn't have the fan standing by.
Everybody was just covered in fog. So it was kind of funny. Set the tone for the whole night.
Apparently. Misfits Danzig or Misfits Jerry only?
Oh, Danzig.
Yeah, Danzig.
Come on.
Yeah. Classic. Rockabilly? Psychobilly.
I like Psychobilly.
Yeah, Psychobilly much more fun.
I like Rockabilly, but man, Psychobilly just goes all over the place.
Also, I've never seen a genre more dedicated to not talking about anything in reality. There's never politics. Love songs are always in the guise of like Frankenstein falling in love with Dracula or some shit. It's like...
Yeah, I was a teenage werewolf.
Mm-hmm.
Great stuff.
The Cure or Susie and the Banshees?
I always gravitate towards Susie and the Banshees.
The 14-year-old me just likes The Cure.
I mean, The Cure's great, but
Susie's probably better, in objectively.
Yep.
Headless Horseman or Jack the Ripper?
Ooh, I kind of like the Headless Horseman.
I'm with you.
That's a cool villain.
It's a cool image too.
Yep.
He's holding his pumpkin head.
Yeah, his pumpkin head. Yeah, he's headless, chasing after you, sword, crazy.
Best gothic house accessory, gargoyles or creepy chandelier?
I love me some gargoyles.
Yeah, gargoyles on the outside. And if you're a baller, gargoyles on the inside.
Yeah.
Because a creepy chandelier, it's only in one room. And also just stay clear of that thing.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
Dusting that
gargoyles,
thing.
They're watching you.
Yep. Their eyes follow you.
Scariest horror kid, Damien from The Omen or Regan from The Exorcist? I'm going to say Exorcist.
I'm going with Damien.
Interesting.
That kid knew what he was doing. Regan was just possessed.
We're going to wrap this up here with a game of What This Movie, Gothic Horror, Haunted Houses, Ghosts, and Guillermo del Toro edition. Then we'll wait patiently for Crimson Peak to come out.
Yeah.
Pan's Labyrinth.
Yes, great.
Great. Hellboy.
Great, love it.
Oh, I'll say good.
My favorite superhero movie.
Oh, interesting.
Hellboy.
Not my favorite superhero movie. Hellboy 2, The Golden Army.
Worthy follow-up.
Worthy follow-up, indeed. The Haunting 1999 remake.
Loved it when I was a kid. Watched it not too long ago. It has not held up.
Really? Never watched it.
Not very
That was one of those movies that in 1999, it's like, my mom's never going to take me to this. You know what I mean?
I remember being really excited because I was like, yes, it's PG-13. I can go see it. And I was so stupid. So, yeah.
From Hell.
I think it's an underrated movie. I like it.
I liked it.
The comic book's really graphic.
I bet. Poltergeist.
Never saw the original. Didn't think much of the new one.
Never saw the original. Didn't think much of the new one either. Which, for anyone complaining right now, we're going to do it soon. We got a plan. We've got a plan. I've got a plan. Nosferatu.
It's a seminal horror movie. I think it's still creepy. So yeah.
I need to revisit this because it's one of those things where I've seen, like probably in like a classic narrative fiction class or something like that, but like haven't seen it recently. You know what I mean? Bram Stoker's Dracula, which is the Francis Ford Coppola edition.
I've never seen that movie.
Really?
I know.
I love the fuck of that movie when I saw it back in like the late 90s. I loved it.
I've wanted to see it.
Something to see.
Tom Waits is in it.
Sweeney, and so is Keanu Reeves.
And so is Keanu.
Sweeney Todd.
It's a great film. Yes.
Never seen it.
Yeah, you should check it out.
Sleepy Hollow.
Another great Tim Burton film. That's one that just like, that's a good little gothic story.
Yeah, yeah.
It's just well shot, well made, fun, good gore. It's an underrated movie.
Interview with a Vampire.
That is an overrated movie. I don't like that movie.
And I like it. It doesn't lend itself to like, because there's a whole Anne Rice vampire chronology. It really is a standalone thing. You couldn't imagine these characters going on to do what they do in those books, but I liked it. Blade 2.
Probably the best in the Blade franchise, but I don't think it's as good as people think it is.
Yeah, it's been too long since I've seen it.
I feel like people kind of fell head over heels for it.
Right.
And saying that Guillermo del Toro he is brilliant, but I just didn't see much in that.
And this is before we really had comic book movies out the yin yang. You know what I mean? So it's like now it's like does it hold up after all this time? Yep. Although Blade 1 was a revelation because it's like badass comic book movie, you know, faithful enough to the source material. It was good.
Rated R, all that good stuff.
Mimic.
It's a decent little horror movie. So.
I'd say it's a little bit less than decent. Also, bugs are gross. The Cell. No, The Cell.
Yeah, that's an interesting film. Works in some parts, doesn't work in others.
I think that's an accurate assessment. Hellraiser.
You know, I've never seen Hellraiser.
You know, I saw it in high school, and I'm like, what the fuck is this? And the ending to me didn't make any sense. And I do think I need to go back and revisit it, because there's lots of, like, you know, like, every time, there's, like, a lot of, I think, things I just was not mature enough to figure out. Gothica.
Terrible.
Never saw it.
It's bad.
Amityville Horror. Remake or old one?
I never saw either of them.
I saw the remake one when I was at the gym one time. And
With, Ryan Reynolds?
Yeah, it wasn't very good. But the gym is not a great place to watch a movie.
Yep.
So, there's also that. The Others.
Kind of overrated.
You know, people do rate it very highly. I've never seen it.
And I don't know why.
Chronos.
Good debut for Guillermo, but I don't think it holds up overall. But you kind of see the seeds get planted for who Guillermo's going to become.
I have never seen Chronos. Again, it was one of those VHSs and Blockbuster that it was right next to Dagon, where I'm like, let's get these movies, and no one ever wanted to do it. And then by the time I was going there by myself, I was off to other things, sadly.
Chronos has its own Criterion Collection Blu-ray now, so.
Devil's Backbone.
Great film.
Great. Can't say how great it is.
I'll watch it again now that I'm even more mature. I
Indeed.
think I'll get even more out of it. So.
Pacific Rim.
I mean, robots fighting monsters. I'd eat it up with a spoon.
I would say it's hampered by pop culture, and it could be a little bit more deep. You know what I mean? It could strive, I think, a little bit harder. Hopefully that'll be done in the sequel. But I think a great movie. You know, not an anti-romance story, but like, you know, you got the two male leads who are young, attractive people, Charlie Hunnam and the other girl, and they don't have to fall in love. It's about them finding a friendship.
Yep. You
know, and I think that is no one's giving them enough credit for making how bold of a choice that is. Where, you know, they could have easily made that a romance, and they held back. And you know, you don't get credit for holding back. You only get credit for doing something right.
Yep.
So you know, there's a lot that movie doesn't fuck up that no one gives them credit for.
Yep.
So overall, great. The Orphanage.
Decent ghost story.
That's the one with the kid and the kid goes missing, right?
Yeah. Yep. Inconsistent, but overall a good film.
I think it was great. It's devastating, man.
Yeah.
And it's
sad movie.
If you want to see a good movie and it's a good horror movie that's kind of outside your normal vein of like a ghost story, go see it. Don't look anything up about it. Just go watch it because it's nuts.
Yep.
13 Ghosts.
That's a terrible movie. I think that was.
I don't think I've ever seen it.
I think that came out in the glut of the '90s horror, and it's just kind of a splatter fest, but not even a very good splatter fest. A lot of CGI splatter in there.
I never saw it. I would like to see it though.
Check it out.
Monster House.
Never saw it, but heard good things.
Written by one Dan Harmon.
Yeah, that's right. Dan Harmon did write it.
I saw it in the theater. It was great. There's a lot of fun stuff in there. It's fun. It's real fun.
I would check it out.
I don't know if the animations held up over time, but it was fun. Ghostbusters.
What can you say about Ghostbusters other than it's a classic?
Yeah, Ghostbusters 1's really good. Ghostbusters 2, I don't have any love for.
I'll defend Ghostbusters 2.
That's your right. Ghost Dad. No. Any last minute scary bits and bobs?
I'm gonna sit patiently and can't wait to watch Crimson Peak.
Yeah, I want to check it out.
Probably gonna see it at the Alamo Draft House.
Yeah, that's a good place to see it.
I've never been to one.
So then who am I gonna see it with? I guess I'm gonna try to talk like Crystal or maybe someone into going with me.
I don't know.
I'd bring Emily. She likes gothic horror, but
get on Tinder and just be like, listen, I'm looking for a movie date.
Yep.
You'll get herpes. Just from touching Tinder, you get herpes.
Is that how it works?
Yep.
They should take that feature out. It's not a flaw, it's a feature. All right.
Yeah, really looking forward to this. Can't wait to talk about it.
Here we go. we're back.
We're back.
Today is October 15th. We went to the 8 p.m. screening of Crimson Peak at the TCL Chinese Theater.
The legendary Grauman's used to be known as.
Went to the IMAX. We saw it in IMAX, which was a good experience.
Yes.
Laser projection.
They're pushing that laser projection.
Listen, I don't know if I understand it, but the colors looked very crisp.
Oh, yes.
So visually, I think we got a really good experience. The movie was not shot in IMAX to my knowledge, but it looked good.
It looked very good.
Theater was a little hot for my taste. Kev, we were talking right before we started recording, and you were okay, though.
I'm pretty temperate most of the time.
Okay.
Pretty
So
cold-blooded.
I don't know what happened, but I found it to be uncomfortably hot, and it's an old theater, so I don't know. Listen, that's not important. We keep here to talk about Crimson Peak. What happened in this movie, Kev?
Little plot summary here. So we have Edith Cushing, played by Mia Wasikowska.
Mm-hmm. We meet her when she's 10 years old.
She's 10 years old. Her mother has died. They said, I didn't catch what killed her, but it was something...
Consumption or some disease.
It required a closed casket,
Right.
basically.
That's what you need to take away from it.
Yeah. As a 10-year-old, she has a vision of her mom's ghost, comes to haunt her, and her mom says, "Beware of Crimson Peak."
Which she doesn't understand.
We don't know what that means.
Right.
It'd be like if your future self came back and said, "Invest in Google." You wouldn't know what that would
Yeah,
mean.
what are you talking about? Cut to 10 years later, or 14 years later?
14 years later.
So she's 24.
Yep. We're in Buffalo, New York in 1901, I believe. Her father is a very wealthy
Businessman.
She's
a budding author.
Yep. She works in his, it looks like an architectural firm.
Yeah.
Just, works there, but yeah, she's a budding author. They call her a Jane Austen. She prefers to be a Mary Shelley.
Great
She
line.
tells people, yep. Because Mary Shelley died a widow. A dashing Englishman, played by Tom Hiddleston, named Thomas Sharp, comes from England, lives in a mansion that is on a clay mine.
That he claims has that can make very great bricks.
Yes, like
the-
a red, like scarlet colored clay.
Right. But the mines have all collapsed, and he needs capital to create a machine that digs up the clay without using mine shafts, or I don't know. We don't really. It's the MacGuffin.
Exactly. Her father, he's proposing this to her father to get capital. He says, "You did this in England, you did this in Edinburgh, you did this in Milan. You failed so many times. I'm not interested in you, and I also don't like you very much."
Mm-hmm.
So he's rejected, but they keep him around in the amongst their their social circle.
Yeah, he's hanging out.
Yeah, just hanging out. They have a waltz, like a ballroom waltz, and Thomas takes Edith, and that's kind of when the spark kind of first happens of their budding romance.
And I'm not sure I'm using this term correctly, but I think that's when they start shipping.
Oh.
Yeah.
So the father finds something mysterious about Thomas Sharp and his sister, played by Jessica Chastain.
Offers them money to leave. They take the money and appear to leave. Later, the dad is killed. And like the very next day, he's killed in his little clubhouse that he hangs out in.
Yeah, his massive bathroom.
Yeah.
That they have.
Thomas returns to Mia Wasikowska and says, "I can't leave you." They then hear the news of the death. There's a quick funeral. They move to England. They move into his old family's estate. It's
Allerdale Hall.
Literally, they don't know how many rooms are in the house. The house is huge. There's a gaping hole in the ceiling where all the snow is drifting in. The
house is actually sinking into the ground because it's on this clay mine.
Yeah, and the clay is there's just random spots in the house where it's just kind of like weeping clay.
Yep.
Yeah, and it doesn't really make any sense because like how is the clay up this high? Like, it makes sense that the clay is coming up to the floorboards. If we are to believe that the foundation is unstable, but it's like if you're on the second story, why is there clay just coming out of the wall?
Yeah.
Like where's that coming from?
It sure looks cool, though.
Listen, looks great. There's some ghostly activity in the house, unexplainable.
Yeah, Edith starts seeing ghosts that are red, ghosts that are missing limbs. She finds a ghost that has a hatchet in its head in the bathtub. A lot of mysterious things going on in this house. And in side scenes, we see Tom Hiddleston and Jessica Chastain doing mysterious things and saying things that are kind of vague and we're not
Right, plotting and trying to get rid of her.
exactly.
So Dr. Allen, played by Charlie Hunnam, is investigating the father's murder. He thinks it's suspicious.
And he has eyes for Edith. And
Right.
we've kind of
He's
established
in love
that.
with her for a long time. He figures out what the dad knew, which was that Tom Hiddleston's character has been previously married and that their mother was murdered, and the only people around were the kids, and everyone in the area was very in denial about this, and they sent the kids off to boarding school and kind of just paved over the whole murder. Cut back to Mia Wachowska. She's getting sick. She's realizing that she's being poisoned, seeing more ghosts, finds a mysterious box in the basement, opens it, has all the stuff from the previous wives. Revelation: Tom Hiddleston's character has had previous wives. They just use them for the money. They send all the money over to the estate, and then they are subsequently murdered, and those are the ghosts haunting the estate. Double twist. Turns out that Tom Hiddleston is in an incestuous relationship with his sister.
Yep.
Gross.
Yeah.
Then
Then things start getting really
yeah,
weird.
then things get really weird. It's revealed that it's been hinted, but then it's firmly confirmed that Tom Hiddleston is in love with Mia Wachowska's character for reals, and he is having a turn of he can't do it anymore. He can't live this monstrous life that he's living. He finds his humanity just in time for Charlie Hunnam's character to show up and get stabbed.
Yep. Yeah, Charlie Hunnam, Dr. Allen shows up to try and save the day. He is promptly stabbed, but Tom Hiddleston, Thomas Sharp, he can't bring himself to kill Edith. His sister goes crazy, stabs him. Lots of stabbing going on.
Yeah, it's a stab-heavy movie.
And then it's kind of an elongated chase between Jessica Chastain and Edith through the house. Lots of stabbing again.
Climax is outside.
Climax is outside in the cold, in the fog. A lot of, kind of chasing around. Kind of like in Gangs of New York.
Right.
Lots of using the fog as
Meets The Shining.
Meets The Shining, exactly.
Jessica Chastain is distracted by the ghost of Tom Hiddleston, and Mia Wachowska is able to finish her off with a shovel.
Well-placed shovel to the head.
And we end with a little soliloquy on Ghost, Crimson Peak.
And it's the ghost of Tom Hiddleston and Jessica Chastain continue to haunt the place where they were imprisoned for most of their life.
Right. Their earthly prison has become their spiritual prison.
Yes.
So, now that we've rambled through that, Kev, did you like this movie? Point blank, did you like this movie?
I didn't like this movie. I loved this movie.
Did you?
It made me a monster. They say love makes you a monster. I must be a monster because I loved it.
I also liked it a lot. It's very tough because I was very much so looking forward to this movie, so I feel like when things were happening, I was trying to think about them. I was trying to be in. I was not in the moment because I was just trying to
Yeah.
There's a mystery in this movie, and the brothers and sisters are bad. The first third of this movie is basically a Jane Austen kind of Pride and Prejudice affair with a little bit of a maniacal edge. It's like we're at a ball and we're dancing the waltz, but then they kind of whisper to each other, so that there's a gothic undercurrent of a mystery going on. So I was trying to piece together what's the twist gonna be, what are the ghosts gonna do, so I wasn't in the moment as much as I would like to be. But that being said, great movie, love this movie.
I would say it takes a bit to get going, but once the movie wraps up, you really see what it was building towards.
They do spend. Oh, sorry.
And then the first act makes a lot more, not sense, but it kind of
contextualized.
You see what they were building towards.
Well, it's interesting because for a movie called Crimson Peak, we spend a good chunk of time not even talking about that at all.
Yep.
The first third of the movie is just no Crimson Peak. There's no nothing, and even as we get into the second act, there's probably 10 more minutes where there's the dad dies and there's the funeral, and then then we go. You know what I mean? So it's quite some time before we get to the haunted house and this haunted house affair.
Yep.
But it builds up well though, because there's still some scares in the beginning part there. Her, a ghost visits her a couple of times before we get to the house, and then the house is full of ghosts. So that's interesting. So it's an interesting thing that in the synopsis, there's lots of talk of love, and it's a monstrous love, right? Love that makes you a monster. It's an obsession, and the closing the closing soliloquy on ghosts, they're talking about, ghosts could be made from a violent act, or they are infatuated with a place, or the strongest ghosts of all are love, and those ones never go away. And it's interesting because in the beginning of the movie, the first ghost that we see is the coloration of the ghost is black, and it has a certain kind of look to it, which is more human than...
It's a veiled skeleton.
Yeah, veiled skeleton, but with some skin apparatus, right? Which is interesting. And then all the other ghosts that we see are kind of rotted zombie-looking corpses in the house, and they're all red. But then in the end, we see another corpse. We see another ghost, which is Jessica Chastain's character, and she's the same kind of black ghost. So it's interesting. That's an interesting color story.
And Tom Hiddleston's ghost is a white ghost with yellow eyes,
yes,
which we haven't seen before.
Right. So I think it's hard to tell after just watching the movie once, but it seems that the black ghosts are obsessed with love, and then the red ghosts are victims of violent crimes, and then Tom Hiddleston's ghost is as good guess as anyone. But I think that's... Do you agree with that assessment? Did you see that?
Oh yeah, no. There's the color in this movie is not just to make a pretty picture, although it does. Make
it does do that. Picture. It does make a good pretty picture.
And man, in IMAX did it look good.
Right.
But,
lasers.
But yeah, there's lots of... When we're in America, it's red and gold, but when we're in England, it's lots of red and blue, and and yeah, lots of just deep blacks and deep reds, and they really are... Those colors are all doing something, and I want to watch it again because the costumes change a lot.
Yes,
and all those colors are in the costumes, so they have to be... There's something being said there.
Right.
Like I said, it's hard to all process in one go, but
right.
Yeah, the presence of color is doing a lot in this film. It's really also telling part of the story.
Right. A lot of jump scares in this movie. Did you notice that?
A lot of well built up.
Here we go. Get on the Backpedal Express. Kev, historically on this show, you have not liked jump scares, and you do not think well of them.
I don't like when they're cheap.
But
I don't like a cheap jump scare.
I mean, there's a lot of ghost comes through the door and it's
Yeah.
You know what I mean, in this movie.
But they build
a lot of loud noises too.
There's loud noises.
They do. So you're saying okay, good.
There's ghosts popping out of places, but it kind of does it with the space in the frame. It's not just like something just bursts out at you all of a sudden. It shows you where the darkness could be, and then it comes at you at some point. It really builds the tension and earns each jump scare. It doesn't just throw something at you.
Well, and the thing is that it's... I think that there's two kinds... I think this movie illustrates very well that there's two kinds of jump scares. There's the dumb jump scare, right? Which is we don't have... It's every 10 pages we want to scare and we don't have one here, so just throw a cat behind a dumpster and it makes a loud noise. And then there's what it does here, which is it is a jump scare. It's a loud noise. It's a sudden image. It's, it's a boo moment, but it's earned. And I think, that's how that's how all horror movies have to work, right? You can scare people, but you got to build to it. You got to earn it. You know what I mean?
And they're not just dumb ones where it's it's a jump scare. Oh, it wasn't anything to be worried about. It was just a cat.
Well, that's a good thing is that there's no false leads in this movie.
Yep.
Which is very interesting.
Yeah, it's every jump scare. It's a ghost or it's somebody with a knife.
Oh, and everyone being weird is someone being nefarious. There's never. It's maybe the brother doesn't know, but the sister's good. But maybe the sister's bad and the brother's good. It's
not stringing you along.
Yeah, it's not stringing you along. It's hiding in plain sight is what it does.
Yep.
Because as the audience member, we're just all trained to think of twists, and it's the twist here is that they're not only are they murderers, but they're also fucking.
Yep.
It's oh no! Why did I look for this twist?
This house is weird.
So, now that we're talking about jump scares and sisters fucking or brothers and sisters fucking, do you think this movie is scary? Do you find it? Would you say it's a scary movie?
I think it's scary, but it's not a horror movie. Does that make sense?
I would say it's a horror movie, but it's not a conventional. It's a gothic romance. Yeah. So that's a different. There's much more melodrama. There's more time spent on people's relationships and the mystery. It's not, and I'm not super well versed in gothic romance, but I think it is a horror movie, and I think there are scary moments, but it's not Paranormal Activity. It's not a modern movie, and I think I mean, that's no better illustrated than the fact that it doesn't take place like most more horror movies take place now in whatever now is, right? So it's like this movie takes place in the past. It's a period piece. So I think it is a horror movie. It's just an unconventional horror movie because the gothic romance subgenre is neglected as a genre.
For sure, yeah. We're not seeing any major American films
I mean,
gothic romance.
in my preparation for this podcast and my just interest in this movie, I've been listening to a lot of Guillermo del Toro interviews, and he's like I don't make movies that are on trend. He's like, like no one was asking for a gigantic robots versus monster movie. I just wanted to do it.
Yep.
And the same thing here. He's like this is my idea, so it's like, I think it is. It's just something that we're not used to.
Yeah, it's a very, we talked about in the first half, he wanted to make a grand horror movie. And this really is that. It's not a down, dirty, quick thing. It's like, it's a very well thought out, artistic, very dense horror film, but much more of a romance than a horror movie.
That being said, I do think that there is and I think repeat viewings will illuminate this for me more, but like, it's difficult looking back on it. Like, what were the ghosts doing? Do you know what I mean? Like, so her mother was a ghost, and her mother is warning her about Crimson Peak, and the mother does that when she's 10 years old, does it back again when she's 24. Like, hey, this guy's here in the house. Don't go talk to him.
Yeah.
But later, when we get to the house, there's the red ghosts, and it's like, what are they trying to do? And in a lot of ways, we don't really understand. There's not like a lot of time spent talking about the nature of ghosts and like what their mission is.
Yeah.
They seem to be trying to get her to know that those guys are murderers.
Yeah, the red ghosts are guiding her.
Right, but then they're also scaring her and being really creepy and being really mean
Well, it's
in
because
some cases.
they're mutilated. And it's
Sure.
like they just look, one ghost has its face smashed in.
Right.
The other one is, the mother or the one wife who has the dead child. Mm-hmm. And then there's the old woman with an axe in her head. It's
Yeah.
like, they can't just walk up to you and go, hey, go in that door.
Right.
That's where we're in. It's like, they're scary. It's they're just naturally terrifying things.
Right.
Yeah.
So I mean, I guess this is the way they act. I can't tell if it's just to satiate the horror element of this, or if there's like they're trying to push and pull in a way that was not. I wasn't able to figure out in the first viewing.
Yeah.
She has a dream where a ghostly image is pointing, and then later she finds a ghost, and then she's like, "What do you want from me?" And the ghost points again. But all the interactions before then are just creepy, right? Where the ghost is just sneaking up on her or chasing her down a hallway. But it's one of those things where it's like, maybe if we study the geography of the house, maybe we realize the ghost is just trying to keep her away from this room and into that. You know what I'm saying? It's all over the place.
Yeah. I mean, there's just a lot going on and a lot to process in one viewing. Mm-hmm. So I am dying to see this movie.
Yeah, it definitely is it definitely seems to be a thick tome. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean?
No, I was enthralled from start to finish with this thing and would happily just go down the hall again.
Mm-hmm.
Really, yeah, it's a great story.
How do you think this ranks with other Guillermo del Toro movies?
This might be his best film.
You think so?
It's up there for me. It's his most complete.
I want to do a double feature of this movie and The Devil's Backbone and see which one I like more.
Very similar themes of unrequited love, lost love, losing your innocence.
Big ghosts that are victimized.
Yep.
Also, kind of a similar aesthetic with the ghosts where there's like a watery element that's kind of drifting away.
Yeah, they have wounds on their face and the blood is going up.
Yeah, as if you were floating in water.
Yep.
Which is a great aesthetic. I do, and we'll get. That's gonna be one of my spoiler alert. It's gonna be one of my cool things is that the ghosts in here are not just it's touching on how we've seen ghosts in the past, which is kind of floaty. You know what I mean? But it's definitely they kind of. They definitely have their own take on it, which is
these ghosts have weight.
Yeah, they have weight.
They seem like they're heavy
and a little bit of moisture.
Oh yeah, they're wet.
Yeah, they're very corpsey, which is it's a cool take on it.
But yeah, to get back to Guillermo's filmography, this is up there for me.
Mm-hmm.
Like this is a master filmmaker work here.
Well,
it's his camera work, the way the actors are just completely in the story at all times. Like, you never feel like somebody just kind of dragging ass, you know? Everybody's in sync. That set is fucking beautiful. The Crimson Peak set is...
No, it's great, yeah.
And they built the whole thing, and it's functional, and it's absolutely, from every angle, that thing is a work of art. And, you know, he's just working at an extremely high level in this, and I feel like it's not perfect, but damn, it's close.
Yeah.
I think. In terms of the kind of stories he tells.
Well, it's interesting because, you know, you have, in terms of just the execution of this movie, there's an interesting thing of the main character is writing a ghost story that later, you know, like in the closing credits, we see that there's a book and it closes, and that book is called Crimson Peak, and then it's written by
Edith Cushing.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's like there's a story within the story, and it seems like they're the same, and it's a ghost story, and the ghosts are representatives of symbols of the past, and which is what the ghosts represent in this. So there's an interesting layering effect there, where it's like there's like this meta thing where she's telling a story, and then she submits the manuscript, and the editor is like, add a love story, and then that's right after that scene, the next scene, the love story gets added to this story, and then that goes wrong. It's just there's an interesting dynamic there that I think he's starting to have that kind of confidence. You know what I mean?
Yeah, he can really start layering a lot of levels into it. And you know, and they talk about going back to the first act. Jim Beaver's character, the dad, tells Tom Hiddleston, "You have to break her heart, you know, in order to making him leave easier."
Right.
And he goes on this triad about you've never fallen in love before, you've never had your heart broken, you've never been hurt by love, and then this story is her getting hurt by love,
Right.
in a very intense way, obviously.
Right, and a really great line from that thing. He's like, "You think love is perfection, but love is far from perfect," which is the theme of the movie, right? It's like there is a monstrous love that will make you do terrible things, right? The things that you will do for someone that are bad, and that is personified both by Charlie Hunnam's character, who is trying to help her, but it's at risking his own life, right? He's getting involved in this terrible thing, but love, and we would think that that's a good thing to do, right? But love is putting him in danger, which is not something that we associate with love, right? Love is just grandiose. Love is kind. Love is forgiving. It's like, this love is not forgiving. This love is forcing you to put yourself in harm's way, risking death. And then the incestuous love that they have, right, killed their mother, made them into monsters. They hide themselves from the world in this dilapidated house, you know, and eventually when the brother starts to move on and fall in love with Mia Wachowska, you know, that love drives what's her face to murder.
And that relationship starts as a false love in order to just exploit and get money, which they've always done, which is kind of their own incestuous thing of just the murderous cycle to just get more money so that they don't die, basically.
Right.
So.
And their love came from the fact that no one loved them, that their dad was abusive, that their mom was abusive, so they only could love each other, and that got corrupted. So it's quite the opposite of a romantic movie, right? It does not speak highly of love in terms of it being a burden, right? Love is a burden to every character in the movie. It puts them in danger, or it destroys them.
Yeah, it's I've just never seen it explored this way before.
Right.
You know?
Right. Not directly. I think.
Love is always the driving force.
Right.
All you need is love. You
Right.
know, and I've never seen it as love is the monster. Love is the real terror. That's going
I mean,
on.
you know,
that's just that's a deep thing to look at.
I think in other movies you can interpret it that way. Like, for example, in Unforgiven, you know, it's like what's his
Clint Eastwood.
wife dies, and you know, then he turns to back to his life of violence, right? And you could say that it's like, you know, it's like you can look at it in a positive way, like she keeps him out of trouble, right? She keeps him on the path of righteousness, but then when she's gone, you know, he falls back into his old ways. Or you could look at it as like, that was his everything, and without her, he's nothing. Without her, he's a monster, right? So it's like, the love is it's like losing her pushes him back.
Yep.
Right? That's the push. So I don't know. It's just this movie just tackles that head on, and I think I don't think that is a superfluous thing. I think that's a real thing. You know what I mean?
I mean, it's just a wholly different way to explore that subject.
Right. Exactly.
In the guise of a horror movie.
My favorite way.
Yeah, you like it.
Speaking of things I don't like, you ready for nitpicks?
Let's do a couple nitpicks.
And there'll only be a few, because for me at least, because I did like this movie. So let's go. 1 minute, go.
I don't know if it's just because it was in the IMAX, but I noticed some of the ADR was off.
Yes, I did notice that too. That's not that. I don't think that was IMAX.
Yeah, I think it's just the lips are moving and they're not matching what they're saying. So
Loki compliments her writing when he first meets her, but it's like, and later, I think the movie's trying to say like, this is a ruse for him to get in her pants, but it's like, how would you know it's her writing, A, and B, how did he have any time to read it? He's just like, looked at the first page, like, this is good writing. It's like, what? What are you talking about?
I thought that was a little. Also, you called him Loki. That's funny. He just owns that part, doesn't he?
30 seconds.
That was really my only big thing.
Bugs are gross.
Yeah, there's
lots of bugs.
Lots of close-ups of bugs and butterflies, including the microscopic one. I knew you were squirming.
Oh man, when the ants are eating the moth's eye, I'm just like, butterfly's eye. I'm like, my last one is it's a sexual movie, and it's a movie about love and sex and stuff, and we see Tom Hiddleston's butt, and that's great.
Hiddle butt, ladies.
But I think the bathtub scene, and this is I'm not trying to be crass, but the bathtub scene could have used some nudity in a non-sexual way just to heighten the threat of what's going on there, and you can see them purposely cut around it, and it just felt a little weird. It just felt a little weird, you know what I mean? And I just don't like it. I don't mind if a movie doesn't have nudity, but when it feels like you're like, oh, we got to really try to avoid this.
I mean,
in a way
it's already an R-rated film,
right? Well, actors don't want to get nude, and that's totally fine. It's just the way it was shot. It just felt like they were cutting around it in a weird way, and it's just like, just change the scene if you're not going to do that. It just the mechanics of that scene seemed off because they're avoiding something. That's why. All right, we've gone over, but those are the things. Let's go into cool stuff. You ready? Go.
Again, the set, brilliant, amazing.
Yeah. Great take on ghosts. Gooey, gross.
The porridge scene. Jessica Chastain is feeding Mia Wasikowska porridge. Just terrifying.
The noise was terrifying.
And she's like scraping the spoon against it. It's like
the things that she was saying, terrifying.
Oh man.
The gore and the violence in this movie are great. And in terms of earning something, it earns both of those things, right? Every act of violence just hits you hard.
Yep. Yeah,
it does not shy away.
From the opening one where the head gets split open on the sink to Thomas getting stabbed under the cheek and his eye going bloodshot, and he slowly pulls out the knife. That whole theater was going, ooh!
The damsel in distress saves herself. Guy comes, he fucks up.
Yeah, definitely subverts the knight in shining armor trope.
Also, Jessica Chastain is like, this either ends when you kill me or I'll kill you. And she says it again, and then Mia Wasikowska finishes her off, and she's like, I heard you the first time. Again, earning that one-liner. This movie earns so much stuff.
I like the hole in the roof because it gives a whole new aesthetic to the inside of the mansion. There's leaves, there's snow in the mansion. It just gives this whole other layer of atmosphere to it.
Yeah. It's great. Scary stuff's scary.
Scary stuff is scary.
That's it, homie. That's it. We're out of time.
All right.
We're out of time. But speaking of the bugs that we talked about, because bugs are gross, if I've not mentioned that before, like, what do you think the bugs represented? What do you think that was all about? Because you had, in the beginning, Jessica Chastain is like, oh, we don't have butterflies, here, and the butterflies are dying because it's winter, and then she's saying where we're from, it's cold, and we have these black moths, and they thrive in the cold, and the black moths are everywhere.
And we see it in the opening scene too, when Edith is 10 years old. She walks out.
Yes, and all the ghosts are black moths.
Yeah.
So, do you think that the black moths represent the ghosts?
I mean, it's tough to say with this symbol.
Mm-hmm.
Again, this movie is very dense. Mm-hmm. I want to see it again.
Something to figure out.
But yeah, it's the moths.
Because I don't have anything. I don't know what I mean.
Yeah, and it's like I don't know enough about a moth to know its characteristics, but maybe
and for good reason.
Exactly. Maybe there's something in there that can do it. But yeah, it's a very prominent symbol. It's not there by accident. So
Right, and I mean,
look into it.
the moths are around the ghost, and then there's a lot of moths upstairs in the attic where their nursery used to be, which is now Tom Hiddleston's like office and their secret fuck hut. So it's like, you know, is it secrets? Is it you know, bad stuff? It's hard to know. Yeah, you like that?
It's a fuck hut, all right.
Pretty terrible. I think I can speak for the both of us when I say, in the end, we like this movie and it definitely works.
Absolutely. It's it might not be what you expect. I think the trailers push the horror element, but that's definitely not the main focus of it.
It's not the main focus, but I don't think it lacks in that area, because I do think the scary scenes are scary, and I think that the brutal scenes are brutal in a way that, and that is unexpected, right? How brutal this movie is.
Yeah, it sneaks up on you because it lulls you a little bit into it's just creepy, but then like a spike of violence will come and it just absolutely takes your breath away.
And in opposition to how the bathtub scene was shot, like we never shy away from the violence, and it's shot. It happens quickly, right? So like he gets his head bashed in twice. He tries to crawl away, and then quickly, you know, he sits up, smash him again, and then his head's caved in. And you're like, fuck, and it's over.
And it doesn't linger on it. And it's like, look at the gore. It's just like you feel it as viscerally as a character would.
Hard hit. It hits hard and it gets out.
Yeah, but that stab in the cheek, man, whew, that got me. I was just like, oh shit, this got...
Dude, that stab in
this got real
nasty. Stab in the cheek, if you've watched this movie and you're listening to what we're saying here, you know it got you, dude.
Yep.
You know it got you. Do you have any sequel pitches?
Man, a sequel pitch.
I'm going to start with mine.
Yeah, go for it.
Crimson Peak 2... The Mountains of Madness, get that movie made. Crimson Peak 2, the house still standing, and it's a goat, and you know, some teenagers and stuff who are descendants of Mia Wachowska's character come to it. Takes place in the modern day, so it's 115 years later. Yeah, so by the time we get this movie made, it'll be 2016. Yeah. So it's 115 years later, and they're just, you know, at the house. It's a family house. It's been fixed up. It's been torn down. You know, you use the same set again. And there's ghosts there. Something happens. Incest. Something happens. Ghosts.
I would do something with they've got their clay mine industry really firing on all cylinders, and what else is down in that clay? You know? What else could be down there?
Symbols of the past. I would want to do something where it's because if the ghosts are symbols of the past, I would want to do something with like how we have to pay for the previous generation's sins. Something with that.
Yeah. Get on it, Guillermo.
Yeah.
After you make at the Mountains of Madness.
Speaking of Guillermo, what do you want from him next?
At the Mountains of Madness.
Yeah, at the Mountains of Madness. Yeah.
I mean, I love a Hellboy 3. I love Hellboy, so... you know, Pacific Rim 2, I can be okay without it as much as I like to see it. I'll always have Pacific Rim.
Right.
Keep making personal films, Guillermo.
Yeah, I don't want to...
He brings his A game every single time.
Yeah, I don't need any superhero movies from him anymore. He already did Blade and the Hellboys. You know, yeah, keep doing the personal stuff. You know, let's get some more... I would like to see a more monster movie from him, like a creature feature, because I think Mimic is not good enough. No. You know, I want to see him go buck wild with it, and maybe a slasher would be good from him, and whatever else he can dream up.
Yeah, it's you know, he's bringing his A game to these stories, and this one you can tell he's absolutely poured his heart and soul into it. The same way in Pan's Labyrinth.
You know, and actually, I want to see also 2 more things to add to the wish list. I want to see basically the Silent Hills thing that him and
yeah.
I want to see that.
Hideo Kojima.
Make that into a movie. Take the materials from that, and make it into a movie, which would probably be a different experience. That's okay. And then there was one more. Fuck. But we'll start there. Start with do the Silent Hills.
All right. Yeah.
That'd be cool.
I'm all for it.
Any fan theories on this movie? You know, with the haunting episode, you really laid it down with the house hates women.
Yep.
What do you think's going on here?
This house loves moths. That's for sure.
I think we figured it out. I think what's really going on here is that it's just about like the love as an emotion feels good, so we think of it as so like every test you've ever taken in your life, right? You have this anxiety, this fear of like this, like almost like you're gonna die, right? Not in that same adrenaline rush, but that anxiety, right? But it's like, what's the worst thing that's gonna happen? If you prepare for it, you'll be fine, right? But you always have that. Every job interview you go on, you're always like, oh, fuck. But it's like, what's the worst thing that happen? They don't like you? Fuck them, right? Those experiences have this negative emotional things, so we think of them as bad. Well, love feels good, so we always think of it as good. But because, if it's love, you like someone, they like you, it's magical. But this explores the darker side of that, the bad things that can happen because of that, the things that it can make you do that are negative.
And I think the house is kind of a symbol of that too. It's this
rotting.
It's this shithole.
Mm-hmm.
It's a big shithole, but it's a shithole, and they just can't leave it.
Right? They can't leave it.
They don't leave it behind, and it just keeps eating away, keeps falling apart. But part of them, it seems like they're kind of in denial. Part of them, they just don't have the resources to leave. They say a lot, it's the only thing we have.
Mm-hmm.
But, if it really is a symbol of just like crumbling love and infrastructure,
right?
Or something like
right.
It's their own twisted soul as this house.
Yeah.
There's a lot going on.
Mm-hmm.
A lot. Can't wait to see it again.
Yeah, it's a great movie. It was just great. It was just and the thing is, it still works as a fun movie to watch.
Yeah, it's a good, just like we said, gothic romance with some horror elements that is beautiful to look at.
Right,
and just really clips along. It never gets dull. It never gets boring. It never gets bogged down in anything. It's always
right, and we don't feel like there's a couple of scenes that repeat themselves. She goes to the sub basement level a couple of times, but you never feel like we're repeating ourselves for the sake of it.
Yeah.
It feels like because we're out of ideas, so let's go back to this place we've already been. It feels like she goes down there once to escape a ghost, and she goes down there a second time to figure out the thing, and she unlocks it, and then she goes on the third time to get away from someone. So it feels like we're revisiting that set, but it's not out of laziness; it's out of necessity. It's it's true to the story.
Yep.
Again, coming back to it, this movie earns its every moment of this movie earns it. Everything, it just pushes forward, which is very nice.
Absolutely. This is going, I keep a running list of movies that could be in my top 10. This is going right in there.
I think it goes in mine. This is up there with Mad Max.
And The Martian.
And The Martian. Those are three very different movies. It's been a good year.
It's been a very interesting year.
Mm-hmm.
So. As we'll talk about in our year-end episode.
Yeah. That's further down the line. In the meantime, go see Crimson Peak. See it on the biggest screen you can. Go see it with an audience. And
definitely try to see an IMAX. Like that sweeping landscape and the bigness of the house really hits home on the absolute biggest screen possible.
Yeah.
Just beautiful work. Good job, Guillermo.
Yeah. Doing great.
I love you forever.
So that's it for us.
But not in a weird incestuous way.
Follow
us apart. And I won't stab you in the eye.
Please, no stabbing in the eye. Follow us on our various social media platforms. Speaking Cinema, put it into Google, you figure it out. Kev, that's Kev. Me, that's me. Keep it spooky, guys. See you later.
Spooky.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1. He sold the script to Universal he sold the script to Universal with the intention of making it as his next directorial. What the fuck's wrong with me? He sold the script to Universal with the intention of. Hold on.
Directorial.
Yeah. Okay, here we go. This film was actually completed and in the can in 2004, but was held out till the
2014.
Oh, okay. And then it becomes a game of cat and mouse. Blah 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 blah. In the end, the brothers are the. It becomes a game of cat and mouse. It becomes a game of cat and mouse. You want to jump in here?
Yeah. So